Before the joy of giving, there is joy in the journey. Hi, I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. This is the first day from the fundraising school, and I'm joined today by Michal Werner. She is the executive director of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater MetroWest, New Jersey. Michal, thanks so much for being with us on the Fundraising School's First Day podcast.
Thank you, Bill, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I attended a conference and spoke at a conference of the Jewish Federations of North America and had the delight to learn from Michal and her own major gift fundraising experience. Michal, including a particular story that did not go quickly and really reveals that when we're doing our major gift fundraising, there is joy in the journey. You had quite a journey with a particular donor.
I did indeed. And it was actually one of the first journeys of a donor that I had in this position just about 7 years ago. And an individual whom we thought was a guarantee for a gift that we were going in for.
Yeah, and the guarantee came from your CEO. Here's the donor, here's the number. Michal, go get the gift. But then what happened?
Yep. So we walked into this individual's office at the time. He was a CEO of a major financial services firm, and they had over $400 billion in assets under management. So we thought this was a guarantee. He was very involved with our board and a number of our committees. And our board chair at the time said to me, he has to make this gift. Let's solicit him for $1 million legacy gift for an annual campaign endowment. Why would he say no? This is an absolute. And lo and behold, that's where the story took a little bit of a turn.
So he did not say yes.
He did not say yes. Nope. He actually said, why should I do this gift? This is not something of interest to me. And I simply asked if we could keep the door open to continue the conversation to find what it is that he's passionate about.
So a couple of learnings right off the top. Annual fundraising is on our timeline. We send out the letter, send out the digital, have our giving day, all the different types of things. Yeah. Major gift fundraising, as this story is illustrating, is on the donor's timeline. And as fundraisers, we need to educate our colleagues. We need to educate our board, provide them with either informal or formal training. So we don't just hear, hey, this person should do this. Go ask them for that number. How hard can it be? And so Michal demonstrated that all these aspects of major gift fundraising were coming into play. So he said no. What did you decide to do next?
So when I asked him for permission to keep the door open, I continued to cultivate him over the course of probably about another 12 months from that point forward. And as you said, both major gifts and planned gifts are not necessarily on our timeline. They're more on the donor's timeline, and it's about helping them think through the different options and the conversations as the time goes on. And so with that said, when I did go ahead and ask him what it is that he's passionate about, he said it was about fighting for social justice and combating anti-Semitism, which is a very big title, right? What does that look like? And if I may, I can tell you a little bit more about that situation that we put in front of him.
Yes.
And at the time, I had gone back to our federation organization here, the Jewish Federation of Greater MetroWest, and posed to my colleagues, what would it look like if we expanded the program in that space, in our what we call our Jewish Community Relations Council, and there was an appetite for it. We saw that there was a need for it. I came back to the table and I said to the donor, is this something of interest to you if we were to hire a position with that specific focus area in mind? And what would it look like if we had you partner with other philanthropists in the community? And to say he loved the idea is an understatement. We did some research. We realized that he was very involved with an organization with underprivileged children, not in another city, not too far from us. And so this was really something at the core of where he wanted to see the philanthropic difference and make an impact.
And Michal, this is where the story really turns, because obviously the prospective donor's interest in social justice and fighting against anti-Semitism, of course, fits in with the mission and the cause of the Jewish Federations of North America, including Greater MetroWest, New Jersey. But when he identified his definition of social justice, it was another demographic in our country. Can you help our audience understand that, please?
Yeah, so it was actually a very interesting conversation with him when I started to ask questions of what does this look like to him. And he actually articulated that it's about building the allyships with other faith communities within our geographic area of Greater Metro West New Jersey, which is nowhere to be found on the map other than 5 counties in New Jersey. And so it was a very interesting conversation with him of what would this look like? What would the education piece look like? How do we reach out to those different demographics of teens and adults? And it was fascinating. We put somebody in that position since then, and the unbelievable work that has taken place in that space it has been really mind-blowing. A cultural shift for us as an organization, and really realizing that building those allyships has been crucial for us in a world now post October 7th, 2023 for the Jewish community, and far beyond. It's really made a significant difference for us.
So his interest in social justice extended beyond fighting anti-Semitism. He's
Yeah.
focused on a wide range of tragically marginalized and discriminated against people. And why does he hold that view? And importantly, how did you find that out besides that question that led to the discussion about allyship? Because we're getting now very personal into what is making his heart beat.
Yeah, so we had done a little bit of research. He had told me that he has a private foundation. And so I had done some research in terms of looking at their tax documents and understanding where his private foundation was giving. And it wasn't necessarily to Jewish causes, it was to those underprivileged children's causes, if you will, and after school programs and things that seemed to really resonate with him. And when I asked him that question, he said, look, I built myself from nothing, and it's really about assisting others and how do we level out the playing field. And seeing that through his eyes really made a difference for me in terms of the work that can be done here organizationally and how do we reach out to those organizations. I am proud to say that the individual who sits in the seat today in our organization actually reaches out to that donor's other organization with the underprivileged children, and they do an MLK Day volunteer project together every year, which has been really talk about an unbelievable stewardship opportunity with the donor from a selfish perspective. It has just been really transformational and really beautiful to see.
So again, just kind of pausing the story for a moment, what are we learning here? Michal continued the conversations with the donor after the initial no, did some additional homework. Oh, the donor has a private foundation. Wonder what that private foundation donates to. Oh, there are some important clues there that are consistent with his interest in our organization, but also a little bit distinct. And then finding ways to collaborate with those other organizations. And Michal, I have to say, when I heard this part of the story, this was the big aha moment for me.
Yeah.
How did those collaborations come together between the Jewish Federations of Greater Metro West New Jersey and then the other nonprofits that the donor has been supporting through his private foundation? Because we don't hear a lot of collaboration stories in our sector, but this is one of them.
Yes. So look, by him sponsoring, I'm going to say, right, because he's really providing the funding to put somebody, a professional in the seat around an associate director for that specific opportunity of fighting for social justice and combating anti-Semitism has made the biggest difference for us, right? That is her sole responsibility, is to build those allyships across the community, or I should say communities, right? And what does that look like? I mean, even with the Passover holiday coming up, she's doing a whole interfaith model, Seder model with them to better understand the different holidays, right? We invite them to different multicultural events that we put on, and vice versa. We show up at their churches, we show up at their places of worship. And so she's really done an unbelievable job in understanding and ensuring that those allyships are what's going to make a difference for us when it comes down to combating anti-Semitism. We held as an organization, memorial service post October 7th, 2023, which, were the Hamas attacks on Israel. And when we held the memorial service that one year, and then the first anniversary event, all of these multicultural, multi-faith leaders in the community showed up to our services to show their respects, which in of itself, I think, demonstrates the level of connection that she's been able to establish across the community.
So by offering to build collaborations, the allyships, the word that you've been using between your organization and the other organizations in which he's interested in his definition of social justice, you were able to receive a gift. What was the gift just to the Jewish Federations of Greater Metro West New Jersey? Did he also, and does he also continue to support those other organizations? Was there a gift for the collaborative to share? What does this look like?
Those are great questions. So I know that his private foundation, he still supports all these other organizations and does his, I'm going to say his thing with them, right, if you will. But from our perspective, this was actually a very unique gift. And the way that I posed it to the donor was around I want to be able to build trust between us. I want you to know with confidence that we can do this program. And so we actually built this gift in a very unique way. And I said to him, I need $50,000 for each of the next 5 years. Following that, the 5-year mark, I would like to ask you to put an endowment in place. Once we can prove to you that we can do this work, right, and there's a level of trust between us, I want you to put an endowment in place that then would allow us to sustain those programs in perpetuity. And year after year for 5 years, we came back to him with what we call stewardship reports demonstrating the impact of his gifts. One other piece of information that's important to mention that programs that this individual has done in her position as professional, she actually takes teens from across the multi-faith, communities, I'm going to call it, and brings them down to Washington, D.C. for a 2-day trip to educate them on the various backgrounds, right? So it takes them to the National Holocaust Museum as well as the National Museum of African American History, right? And to really just bring them together to understand all backgrounds. And it's a really beautiful moment for them to be away from their community, experience something together for 2 days in Washington, D.C. And it's really been remarkable. And the donor is seeing that direct impact with his 2 eyes. And so we're now entering year 6 of this program, which we're really excited about. And I sat down with the donor just this past summer and I said to him, we're now entering year 5 at that point in time. What do you want to do post year 5? How are we doing on your scale of impact, right? Are we successful? And he said to me, whatever you need from me to continue to generate that $50,000 a year, you have my word, because I see how important this work has been and it continues to be for you as an organization.
He had the proven concept over a 5-year period. Okay, how long does this story take from the board chair saying he should just give $1 million and that's why, and this donor saying no? And how long did it take to get to the 5-year pledge then that he then fulfilled and now is going to be endowed long term?
Yeah, so it took me 12 months to revisit the conversation with him and to put a new proposal in front of him. I should say that the proposal that was put in front of him, not only did I did a gut check with him in terms of here's a draft I'm thinking about, here's a budget approximately that I'm thinking about, given that he was as I said, a CEO of a financial services firm. I realized he liked to be in control of some of these conversations and in control of the decision making, if you will. And so I said, let me just send him a draft, do a gut check with him, let him know that this would be a partnership between him and some other philanthropists in our community, that he wouldn't be doing this alone. And so when he heard those words and he felt like he would have partners along the way, I think that's really what made the biggest difference on that 12-month mark. So this was we made the initial solicitation was in the fall of 2019, and we closed the gift in November or December of 2020. And so due to COVID, all these conversations took place on Zoom or by phone, obviously. And so I only met him at that point twice in person prior to COVID. But the continued conversations along the way were over 12 months. And so now we are at, we were at the 5-year mark and we're entering year 6, but we have his word that he'll continue to support it in perpetuity, which is very exciting for us.
Michal, I want to come back then to what's happening inside your organization, since there was this first conversation with the board chair. What were you hearing during that 12-month time frame? What leading up did you need to do, whether it was to your CEO, to the board, letting them know that this would take time? From a fundraiser's perspective, a 5-year pledge of $250,000 is amazing. Right. But I'm just wondering if this board chair is like, $250,000? we should be getting $1 million. Why aren't you doing your job? Like, was that happening? What was going on inside?
That was definitely a conversation of like, why are you only soliciting him for 250,000 split over 5 years? And I sort of had to say, with all due respect, give us a little bit of time, and these gifts take time, and it's not our timeline, as you said earlier in this conversation, right? It's the donor's timeline. And that's really what's the most important piece here is, where do you find that intersect between your timeline as an organization and the donor's timeline together? And that's really, really important. And I would say that the 12-month mark, even in that space, is actually a very short time frame. The typical time frame for the major gifts and planned gift spaces, as I've seen and I've experienced and I know is really really what's the most important piece in fundraising, is the 18 to 24 month is really the right time frame. So the fact that this closed in 12 months was actually mind blowing, right? Like, we didn't think it was going to close in 12 months, but you have to understand that even prior to me meeting him, the donor had a very long-standing relationship with this organization. He's been in leadership positions for 10 to 15 years already, right? He's been heavily engaged. He gives over $150,000 each year to the organization, to the annual campaign, right? So the capacity is there, but we just never hit the right trigger in terms of what was actually the area of impact that he wanted to see and make a difference with. So I happened to come in at the right opportunity at the right time. And now I'm going to say I own the relationship because I'm assigned to the donor, but I'm really the primary relationship manager with this donor and have brought him along over those 5 to 6 years. And I'm really excited for what's ahead with him, but I've learned whenever he says no, I now say to him, well, I'm going to keep the door open if that's okay with you, right? So
if we want the donor to write the check, we need to keep checking in and continuing to cultivate that relationship over time. And again, Michal Werner heard no. She actually heard not yet. She maintained the conversation over a year, found out what this donor is especially interested in. It included other nonprofit organizations, and the idea came together for a position in Michal's organization to hire a staff person to develop collaborations amongst all of these organizations, led to a 5-year pledge, and now to a longer-term gift for this activity to continue. Absolutely. And Michal, we've learned so much from you today. What final advice do you have for fundraisers who are in major gift fundraising, who are maybe facing some of these similar situations internally, similar conversations with their donors? How would you summarize your advice for major gift fundraisers?
I would actually say, don't take no for an answer, as you just said, right? I never hear no. I hear not yet, and or let's revise the plan. Let's think about this together, right? And so, and it's about how you have the conversation with the donor. The other thing I would say is give yourself time. Give yourself time, give the donor time, right? That's really what you need to help develop those relationships, the focus areas, the impact areas. And there's no need to rush. As you said earlier, right, the annual campaign's on our timeline as an organization, right, because it's cash in, cash out. We need that for operations. But when you talk about major gifts, when you talk about planned gifts, it's really about diving deep with the donor in terms of like what that area of impact looks like for them, what's going to be meaningful to them. I often start the conversation with, what are you passionate about? What makes you tick, right? How do we find that junction between what the organizational needs are and your values as a donor, and where do those two meet in the middle? And it's okay if it takes time. Like, don't be afraid to take that time that you need.
And Michal, here's the thing. If the donor keeps taking the meeting, they know what's coming. They know eventually there's going to be an ask. If they decline the meeting, then we know. But if they keep accepting the meeting, they know where this is leading.
100%, Bill. 100%. That's exactly true. That's 100% true. And it's about, right, what do you do from that point forward? If they're going to keep taking the meeting, then what is the goal of the meeting? I often say my number one rule for myself is I don't like to ask on the first date. So because you have no right to ask. You didn't build that trusting relationship with the donor on the first date, which is the other piece of, what made me uncomfortable with that donor story, right? It was my first meeting with the donor, and here I was about to ask him for a major gift, and I went against my own rules, right? I didn't feel comfortable with that. And that's really a big piece of it. You don't kiss on the first date, so don't ask on the first date. So
wonderful advice and excellent learnings from Michal Werner, the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater MetroWest New Jersey. And consistent with what we teach at the fundraising school, Mihal's story is supported by evidence-based research, the type of evidence-based research that supports our curriculum in 27 courses, including Developing Major Gifts, which is part of our Certificate in Fundraising Management, one of 5 certificates that we offer. We're in person in about a dozen cities now in the United States, and of course, online anywhere across the world. We can customize training just for your nonprofit, your region, your association, whatever the case might be. We have quarterly webinars and, of course, this weekly podcast, all of our knowledge gathered in our textbook, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Where do you find all of these wonderful resources? Well, just go online to go.iu.edu/TFRS for the Fundraising School. I am so grateful for our producers today, Mike Anthony and Jennifer Boffman. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz, and now you are now more fully informed on this first day from the Fundraising School.